Hello HEMA friends! Today we start a new path together that will endure for a number of videos. I will start today to talk about the crossing in a more extensive way. So we will analyze crossing or Incrosada that in the Italian fencing manual means crossing the sword with the opponent's sword. Now, in this first video, we will analyze the situation in which this crossing can happen. So, every single action, offensive or defensive, that can create a crossing. Okay, let's start with the first one. The first action that can create a crossing is, of course, the parry. The parry is the most easy defensive action that you can do to defend yourself, of course, and it is also the most common action that creates a crossing. Okay, let's see a few examples of a parry. The second action that creates a crossing is the beating. The beating is an offensive action done onto the opponent's sword when it is held in an elongated position, like longer, for example, or langort in the German tradition. Now, the beating is used to take advantage onto the opponent's sword, or better, to take control of the opponent's sword by displacing it for the time which is needed to launch the attack toward the opponent. Now pay attention that in the Fiore de Liberi manual the word rebattere is used also in defensive context, which is not correct in terms of modern theory. As I said before, the beating in the modern theory it is an offensive action and not a defensive action, as Fiore describes it. Of course, Fiore is not wrong. He is describing things with his own words, with his own theory. But to better understand fencing and how to deal with action, I prefer to use a more modern way to explaining actions. That said, let's see a number of beating to see when the crossing is happening during the beating. As you have seen, the beating is an offensive action, while the parry is a defensive action. But in the end, they create a very similar situation in terms of crossing. Now, this crossing will last for a split of seconds sometimes, other times just a bit more. But in the end, it will be a very, very fast situation to be aware of. And that's the situation that we will train to manage most of the times. On the other way, there is another situation that can create a crossing that we will see now, which is the bind. Now when we bind, we want to touch the opponent's sword as much as possible to keep awareness of where the opponent's sword is. Now this action, this controlling action, creates a crossing that can last a bit more or even a lot more than the parry action or the beating action. From the bind, an action named filo in Italian, which means edge in English, can be used to attack the opponent. This specific action, which is used on the bind, keeps the contact with the opponent's sword every time during his execution. Okay, let's see a number of binding action and a number of action on the opponent edge, so filo actions. The thing that all these actions have in common is keeping in control the opponent's sword. So we can say that a crossing is generally used or always used to keep in control the opponent's sword. All the action that we have seen can be made with different parts of the sword. The part of the sword are punta, medio and forte, following the teaching of Maestro Fiore. And we will see that different action can be more useful if made with specific part of the sword. But we will see this in the next videos. Guys, I hope this video will help you. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want to see more of the action that you have seen in this video, especially the binding one, you can join my Patreon community. You will find a number of interesting and exclusive video for my Patreon community. As always, see you next time.